Hi everybody, so I'm going to be talking a little bit about the Muslim concept of jihad. I want to first start by talking about how this kind of relates to me personally. I was raised as a Christian. We talk about, what Paul says in the New Testament about about the struggle between the flesh and the spirit. There's a part of us that always wants to follow God's will and to always do what is right, and there's also a part of us that wants to resist and follow our own selfish desires. In the New Testament, again, it's called the battle between the flesh and the spirit. Sometimes we call it Old Adam or New Adam, or sometimes we call the flesh the sinful nature. And so we want to follow one and resist the other. So this is Christianity clearly practices jihad as well. We might not call it that, but that essentially is what it is. Now for other classes I'm taking, this applies very well actually to modern biomedical ethics. In psychology, I'm currently taking childhood and development, and we see that with children, experiments that we do, we have to be very careful about, doing the right thing, making sure we're not, overstepping our bounds with what we can do with kids. And this is clearly a struggle, if you tell a kid, hey, all of this is going to be confidential, and then a kid suddenly starts talking about how their parents beat them, it's like, oh shoot, well now what do we do? So clearly, jihad is part of the secular world, not just the religious world. So even if you're agnostic or atheist or a seeker, even then, jihad is an important part of everyday life. Now, as for the current election, unfortunately, a lot of people know more about lesser jihad than they do about the greater jihad, the inner struggle to do what's right that I've been talking about. People think that jihad is just all about violence, and even sometimes will sarcastically say, oh, that religious fanatic, he's a jihadist or whatever, that's not, jihad, the lesser jihad is something that's practiced only when necessary, and this is something that was true of the early Muslim community under Muhammad. They were being severely persecuted, and they needed to defend themselves. So this clearly, to say that jihad is about violence, Donald Trump and those people, the rhetoric in the campaign, we need to start educating people on the real issues so that they're not voting for the wrong person who has clear ignorance about Islam. And we also need, hopefully after enough time, this education will tone down some of the political rhetoric, and people will realize that the majority of Muslims are not like ISIS or Osama bin Laden or Al-Qaeda or any of that. So now I have a couple questions for you guys to discuss. The first is, what core values lie behind the different religious traditions that you know about? This could be Islam, Christianity, Buddhism, and all kinds of different faiths. And how do these values relate to the Muslim concept of jihad? How can this promote dialogue? And also, what kind of questions should people of faiths or people of no faith at all ask before deciding whether lesser jihad is necessary? And when, if ever, is violence justified? So I will see you in class. Yeah, thanks for listening.